Yesterday, I discussed the House Homeland Security Committee's hearing on Biden's botched Afghanistan withdrawal. Well, today, the House Oversight and Accountability Committee, the entire committee, held their own hearing to get to the bottom of the fiasco that cost 13 service members their lives while damaging U.S. credibility globally. Joining me now to discuss this and more is Congressman Pat Fallon. He serves on the House Committee on Oversight and Accountability and on the House Armed Services Committee. He represents the 4th Congressional District of Texas. Congressman Fallon, welcome back to the program.
Tony, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, let's talk about today's hearing. What were some of the takeaway? Any surprises today?
I really was a little bit surprised, Tony, at the forthcoming nature of the Inspector General, in so much as them saying that the Biden administration absolutely dragged their feet and did not cooperate with their own investigation of what happened during the disastrous Afghani withdrawal. Now, that's not a surprise that they would do that. It was a bit of a surprise to me that the AG came out so forcefully and called out the administration, because all Joe Biden has ever wanted to do, as you know, is blame President Trump.
Right. So, I mean, the evidence is very clear. This administration, this was theirs. They own this. They made the decisions. This president made the decisions. I mean, how long are they going to deny responsibility?
You know, Tony, let's be honest. If you're going to withdraw from any country, it's never going to be smooth, but it doesn't need to be a debacle either. And the fact of the matter is Joe Biden made some critical errors. So let's go through them very quickly. One, he drew a very arbitrary line in the sand, or a red line, and he did it to himself by saying that we would be out by September 11th of 2021. That made no sense for a few reasons. One, you need to give yourself some flexibility. But two, this was right in the middle of fighting season. In Afghanistan, because of the rough terrain and the weather, they generally fight from about April to October, and then they go home and they wait until the winter passes, and then they continue to fight again, at least in large-scale measure. Well, Joe Biden didn't do that. He withdrew in the middle of fighting season. He redlined himself. But then when he asked his military commanders, should I go from the 2,500 troop level that we have now down to 650, which the State Department wants me to do, he listened to the State Department and not the military. And what ended up happening was the military said, we can't hold Bagram and Kabul with 650 troops. So we left Bagram, and there were 5,000 bad guys there. They all escaped because the Afghani troops couldn't corral them. And one of them became a suicide bomber that murdered 13 of our service members.
Right. So bottom line on this topic, Congressman, American people are saying, okay, we know this administration is inept. Their withdrawal from Afghanistan was political. It was not tactical in terms of withdrawal. It was a mistake. What's the bottom line, the takeaway? What do we learn from this, and what do we do with it?
We learn that you don't elect amateurs. We learn that you listen to professionals and experts, and you don't withdraw. When you do withdraw from a country, you don't withdraw the military first, you withdraw them last. Now, this seems to be like very basic common sense, but clearly the Biden administration and all the people, the woke crowd that he surrounds himself with, did the exact opposite of everything they should have done over the last 6 months when we pulled out. And remember, President Trump's withdrawal was conditions based. Right. And Joe Biden just said, we're getting out of there by September 11th.
So really, the responsibility ultimately is going to rely upon the voters to select people who know what they're doing and hold those who don't accountable for what they did. All right, I want to switch topics here before we run out of time. A Senate report released this week concludes that COVID-19, the pandemic, most likely originated as a result of 2 separate leaks from Chinese labs. Your thoughts?
Well, when this first happened, most people said, where does the Chinese government do most of this research with coronaviruses? Oh, they do it in Wuhan. And it just happened to start in Wuhan. So the lab leak theory had a lot of credibility with anybody that wanted to have their trillions of brain cells between their ears, fire synapses to one another. That's first thing. But secondly, look at the actions of the Chinese Communist Party after the coronavirus got out. They didn't welcome the international community in and say, hey, we don't know what this is. Please help us. If it was from a wet market, they would have had no idea what it was. And they would have said they'd had no reason to hide anything, much like South Africa did when the Delta variant hit. They didn't know what it was, and they asked for international help. The Chinese did the exact opposite. So, and now it's our own FBI has finally come to terms with the fact that it's most likely that it leaked from a lab. Well, welcome to the party. We could have told you that a couple of years ago.
Yeah, of course. And you had social media working in concert with Dr. Fauci to silence those who were raising this. They were the ones that were called putting out false information, misinformation. Confirm this for me if you can. I'm hearing that Chinese diplomats here in our nation's capital have been seeking to put pressure to intimidate House Republicans who are conducting these investigations, trying to keep this under wraps. Is that true?
You have the proof right here, Tony. This is a letter that the Chinese embassy sent requesting that we do not hold hearings on the origins of COVID. If you have nothing to hide, why would you go to these great diplomatic lengths? This just smacks. You know what this smells like? They're hiding something.
It's amazing to me. This is the United States of America. I just talked about yesterday about how the Chinese had an outpost for their police department in New York City. And now they're trying to strong arm Republicans into being a part of the same thing that the WHO did, covered up their killing of essentially 6.8 million people worldwide.
Tony, we know two things about communists. They're bullies and they lie. They lie like they breathe. So it's no surprise. And I do remember it. I hope the American people don't forget, like organizations like CNN were basically like an arm of the Chinese Communist Party. They would report whatever China said, even if it was incredibly outrageous. Like at one point, China said that they had no new cases of coronavirus in their entire country. This is when the virus was raging across the world. That clearly wasn't true. It was a lie. That their Navy was, when we had our ship that had about 50 coronavirus cases on an aircraft carrier, China claimed their Navy didn't have any cases of COVID. And CNN reported it like that. That is ridiculous.
You're absolutely right. It is. It's beyond ridiculous. It's treasonous, I think.
Yeah.
Congressman Pat Fallon, always great to see you. Thanks so much for taking time to join us today, and keep standing strong.
Thanks, Tony. God bless you.